No, we are doing our first podcast on Set the Pipe with our third, Coley Kyman, bringing him in the house. Welcome, Coley. We're so excited that you're here, man. We're gonna have some good times for sure.
Yeah,
so stoked on you, Coley.
Thanks, Bear. Thanks, Sully. I'm really happy to be here. Super excited about being a part of this. Thanks for having me again. And I had such a great time on the first one and just talking about me, right? I always love talking about me, but just talking and really finding volleyball within my soul again. Just the stories. And ever since then, the three of us are texting every second. I've reached out to so many folks, and so many folks have reached out to me.
Yeah, what was the feedback? Were they able to see the podcast? And I mean, what'd they say?
Yeah, I mean, we grew almost a couple hundred followers. So, by the way, please hit subscribe right now. That's right. How we can continue to bring guests and talk through this. But subscribe would be great. Is so many folks that I played with and against actually watched it and gave me tons of feedback. And, the overarching theme from most of them was just giving them that reminder of what volleyball had done for them. Right? Like,
agreed.
Because we don't even talk about it. I don't think about it as much as I used to. And just to say how much it did, like, one of my best friends, Allison, she played volleyball with Michelle at UCLA. She's a teacher in the LA Unified School District. I think we should get her on here. But she wrote back right away after she listened to it. And she was like, thanks for the reminder. I owe so much to it. In fact, she just got married recently. She's like, the officiant from my wedding, which is something that will be, forever in her heart and her husband's heart, was really good friends with Matt, up at Stanford. Well, she wrote to me, on a text, like how great, the interview was. She thought we did a great job. Just talking about volleyball, laughing about some of the stories that she didn't even know the full extent of some of those stories.
Yeah.
And like I said, she's Jake's godmother. She was the maid of honor in our wedding. She's known me actually a little bit longer than I even knew Michelle. And she didn't even know some of that. But again, the biggest thing was she was like, thanks so much for the reminder of what volleyball has done for me. I got to go to college. I know you. I know my friends. The officiant in her wedding, she just got married. And for her and her husband is through the volleyball connection. And so something she'll have for the rest of her life, who married her, who's also an amazing human being, Kevin. But that's through her volleyball connection. And so that would really be a lot of the feedback was people were grateful for that, just to remember that for their own selves, their stories, what they went through, how volleyball's connected them with friends, life, through tragedy, through happiness, through love, through it all. And then, they were really happy to see what we're going to do and who we're going to bring on and what we're going to talk about, because we do have stories.
Yeah. And part of this, we talk offline, obviously, for this podcast to present to you guys, but we're going to try to do us three, and we're just going to talk about volleyball. It could be anything from NIL to pro to what's going on today, like the matches that are going today, and what do we think about the game today? Really anything that we want, to be quite honest. And at the end, we're going to tee up who's coming on the podcast next. So I think that's going to be pretty crucial. But Tim, have you seen the Long Beach State guys yet?
You know what? I haven't really seen them play. I see little clips about them on Instagram, and I am in contact with Alan Knipe, and we talk quite a bit, and I know he's real excited about his team this year, and they have some studs. Their setter is a beast, and I'm looking forward. I know they just got back from the Midwest. I think they were there for the past week, and they're home now, and I'm looking forward to seeing them.
I'll go with you, Bear. Let's go to a game. I'd love to see Al's squad. And maybe they're playing Northridge. Maybe we can get a game where it's actually
that would be great.
When CSUN's playing there,
awesome.
Because it would be great. And CSUN's doing a great job too, right, these days with volleyball. We can talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, and it was my bad. I didn't look at their calendar, and they were 2.5 hours from me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally missed them. And then I just happened to look on it again, and they were up in Chicago. So I'm like, we're there, like we're going. So we're going to get there super early, and we got there about an hour plus early from the match, and nowhere to park. Cars are everywhere. I'm like, we're at Lewis University, and I'm going, okay, well, Saturday night, I guess there's something going on at the university. College kids are doing stuff, and people are just kind of flowing, walking. And I'm like, we're just going to follow, I guess, because I don't know where we're going. Everybody was going to the volleyball match. And it was 3/4 full already an hour before the match. By the time it was started, it was standing room only. It was amazing. And I got to give kudos to Lewis University. Those guys, great crowd. Clapping when it was great rallies, when there was spectacular plays. It was kind of like going to Nebraska for women's. You think they're just going to be very intimidating, and they're a very knowledgeable crowd, and they appreciate the rallies. And even if the other team wins that point, they'll cheer for it. And it's just about volleyball. Granted, right? Nebraska pro Nebraska, Lewis pro Lewis, but you're talking about Long Beach State versus Lewis number 2 against number 14, and
gotta love it.
Oh my, yeah,
right. I mean,
What
like
was
listening.
the crowd size, Sully? How many people were in there?
If you guys remember the gold mine, it was
1,500, 1,800, something like that.
But if
for
you
that.
took off the 2 ends, so it was only like
Okay.
and it was only on 2 sides, I guess. But it was really intimate, and that's what it was kind of all about. It's kind of like Duke basketball. They don't play in a $16,000 arena, right?
And yes,
Yeah.
we remember the gold mine. We actually
Yes.
played match in the gold mine.
Yes,
So
we
that's
did.
amazing. Like that's
Low
where we
ceiling
actually
finish.
played you guys.
Yeah,
In that venue.
low
Yeah.
ceiling,
Pretty,
right?
yep, pretty awesome though. Pretty awesome.
But I got to tell you the spectacular thing. I've never seen this in volleyball, women's or men's. There's this kid, freshman Nikolov for Long Beach State, and he's a setter, and he's got to be 6'7",
Where's he from?
maybe 6'8".
Bulgaria, I think.
Bulgaria, right? Yeah, and his arms. I mean, he's got to touch 9'8". Something ridiculous.
Just standing there with long arms.
Just standing. Yeah. And jumps through the roof. At Lewis, they had a radar gun for the servers. He's at the 4th set with, I think it was the 3rd to last set for the match because they won in 4. Long Beach State won in 4. Clocked at 80 miles an hour. 80, not 18.
That's
80.
ridiculous.
And he smoked it. After the match, and I'm going to show you guys a picture later, but after the match, the announcer had to tell everybody to leave because everybody stayed and they went to where Long Beach was when they were stretching to go get a picture with this guy and talk with this guy and get an autograph with this guy. It was the biggest rock star thing I've ever seen. I mean, I know Caitlin Clark's huge, right? But it was like a Caitlin Clark moment. I was talking to Al afterwards, and he's like, I know this is kind of a, probably over-exaggeration, but it's kind of like the LeBron effect. I mean, I haven't seen anything like it. I mean, we're talking 100+ people waiting for these guys. And I just had to share with you, I couldn't believe it. This freshman is unbelievable setter. Some of the things that he pulls off. I mean, like I said, Lewis, they all had when he was serving for match point, they all had their phones up, all the students. I mean, we're talking 100 of them, all, and trying to see if he's going to do another 80-mile-per-hour thing. So I mean, that's great.
Every time I
volleyball.
watch the game of volleyball, that's incredible. First of all, that's amazing.
Yeah,
and I was
amazing.
texting you while you were there because I was actually watching Ohio State play UCLA at Coach John Hawk's brother's house, watching that match. So being able to watch volleyball from, just sitting on a couch in Laguna and watching UCLA play Ohio State, and you texting both Bear and I saying this is incredible, and plus picture with you and Al, and it's just awesome to see. But when we played, and again, this is for the archaicness, but we played in the early 90s in college volleyball, and very, very few people, maybe 1 or 2 people jump served.
Yeah.
And it was more of like a little throw it up and like kind of cut like a beach kind of shot. So nobody jump served, and the scoring was different, but like looking at it now, I mean, we all would, that's kind of joke around with the style of play. Everyone's like, oh, my kid's like, you'd never be able to play in this, Dad. And it's the same argument with the basketball guys in the 70s. They all would be able to play in it. They just would have to train it and learn it and play the different style of basketball.
Yeah,
I mean, no one would
absolutely.
tell me, like Patrick Ewing couldn't play in today's game, or Hakeem Olajuwon. Of course they could. They'd still be superstars. They would just practice differently and train differently, and they'd probably be shooting more threes and stretching the floor. So go back to volleyball but to watch these men from the collegiate level to the international just take it up and just throw it up to the ceiling and go up and just take an absolute wrap like they're hitting the ball on an approach is pretty incredible. And to see a freshman at Long Beach State, you saw it. I didn't see it yet. We'll go to a game, Bear, but to see him swing 80 miles an hour has got to be incredible.
Well, he comes from good stock. His dad, I think, played professionally. His older brother played for Allen for a couple of years and then left to go play professionally.
He left.
He's already on the Bulgarian national team and the U19 team. So that guy, and he's 6'8" too. but still, he's an athlete, and he is definitely a beast.
I mean, Alan said that he probably has the most, as a freshman in college, has the most playing experience than anybody in the country. That's how long he's been playing at a high level, right?
That's incredible.
It was unbelievable. I mean, it's funny when I go train athletes, I talk to them about the old rules. See, when we played, if the ball tipped the net, like going across on a serve, dead ball.
That's
like
a net.
Right.
Yeah, it was a net. I mean, it was dead ball. And then we could only serve on the right side, and everybody's like, what? I'm like, you know,
that's right. I kind of forgot about that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit different, but
And then rally scoring was only in the fifth game.
Only in the fifth game. And then when I started, there was no. It was 5 games.
5 games regular.
Yeah.
Then it changed, and they capped. I was just talking to Michelle about this the other night.
Okay.
They capped the 5th game.
Like at 17 or something like that. Yeah.
So you would play, 4 games regular scoring, and then the 5th game you could only go to 17. I think that lasted maybe 2 years max.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And then it went uncapped, right? You just got to win by 2. The crazy thing about the old scoring is I'm good with the new scoring. And when Michelle and I were coaching volleyball in high school, it changed over. So I don't mind it. It's better for TV. I think it's great. It was fun, though, to battle the way we did. Because if you could side out, you could just stay in a game forever.
Yeah.
Right? Like us
if you
at Northridge.
side out, you can't lose.
Yeah.
That was Deli's
well, that's where you guys were at Long Beach. That's why you guys could block the ball, though. But I was never a great blocker. We weren't a great blocking team at Northridge. But next to you guys, from the side out perspective, I don't know if there was anyone better than us besides you guys at Long Beach. And so it was fun to play in that style. I mean, I think it would be pretty fun to play now too, except middles don't play in the back row.
Well, I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah.
Like with the liberos, now the middles don't get to play in the back row. And like Coley, you could dig a ball every once in a while. Winslow was a great digger, for middles and stuff like that. And you don't even get to see that anymore.
I wouldn't be a middle today. Like if I grew up, we went over this in the last one, multiple sports. I love the game of volleyball. If I was able to pass like this,
that's another thing. We couldn't
pass with my hands.
That's right.
Because I was a mediocre passer trying to with my platform.
Yeah.
But if I could do this, my hand eye was
fine.
Well,
Yep.
And I learned at a young age how to do that with my arm, with the quick goes or the back, of course, because also they would have to set the pipe to me. Right. That's what it comes down to. Like I need to be on the court so you can set the pipe. And that was my attribute in volleyball. I could hit the ball. Right.
Yeah.
And I had
really quick arm
That was
swing.
my best part of it. I wasn't the greatest defender. I was an okay blocker. I was a pretty good server, competitor too, but I could hit the ball and I could hit it anywhere, right? Middle, right, whatever it was. And so talking about those new rules and the way the game is I wouldn't be a middle, right? I mean, they're 6'8", 6'10".
Right. Yeah.
6'5". You mentioned this in the first one. I was a good jumper, not a great jumper.
Yeah.
But again, I would have trained that. I would have trained a lot of things differently if I was growing up like the way my kids grow up, right? Like
we talked about the rules. So we beat USC one year. The first set was 15-7. So I'm like, you know what? I want to rally score this thing, and it wound up being like 56-52.
Geez.
And that was the first set. So I would tell these stories to, the kids that I was training. And this one gal just came up to me and it was so it kind of blew me away. She's just like, I'm like, that's a good question.
You mean why did we score it the way we did? Or?
Yeah, just why? Why would you guys do that? And that would be your first set? I mean, because I think we would have won by 2. I mean, that's just how many points we did, right? So 50, it was like 56, 52,
go really
right?
long.
Yeah, for a 15-7 first set, and then you got 3 more or whatever the case may be. But that was crazy.
When we lost in the national championship in 1993, Cal State Northridge, May 8th, 1993, don't really remember it, but playing at Pauley against UCLA, super fair that they got them. No, I'm kidding. We had a great crowd. Okay. It was wonderful that we got to play there. But my point was, the first game, we lost 3 straight. They were better than we were. We played pretty good, and they played really good, and they, were better than us. But the first game went 45 or 50 minutes.
Yeah,
and it went. I should actually know this. I need to talk to Seals because we talked about it. But I want to say it was maybe I went around 5 or 6 times, me personally, in rotation.
Yeah.
Before anyone scored, because we would just side out, no score. They would side out, side out. And,
right.
Yeah. And they still beat us 3 straight. And it was a 2 hour and 40-minute match.
Well, yeah.
If you were to say right now on this podcast, hey, I went to the Long Beach State Lewis match last night. It was 2 hours and 45 minutes. you would have thought it was 40-42,
Right.
Yeah.
36-34.
Yeah.
We got beat 3 straight. And I think there was one game we scored double digits. So like we didn't even, it wasn't like it was 15-13 and 3, or we pushed it. Like we got beat. And it was still 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Well, those matches used to go over 3 hours. And
3 hours.
Somebody could get like 50, 60, 70 kills,
Hilly.
like a Hilliard.
That was like Hilliard.
For sure.
Yeah.
And he used to jump serve a little bit there too.
Yeah,
back
no,
in
he
the
did.
80s.
There's a few people that did.
Yeah.
He did it. Kevin Wong did it. But there wasn't many. Kieran's did it too a little bit, if I recall. But there wasn't many guys. No one on our team. Rafael Tolino did it occasionally.
Yeah.
There's no jump floating either.
Yeah, no one
jump
was doing
floats.
that either.
Yeah.
Nope.
No, yeah. Hilliard was the mainstay in our whole conference of always. I mean, but he just did his 2-step for the most part. Zing,
Yeah.
it was
It
a quick
wasn't a
little
full
1-2, and
approach.
he just swing away at it. But
Yeah.
yeah, and so I go up and walk up to these guys. I'm a libero. I'm a freaking size. I mean, now granted, Long Beach State has some little guys. I mean, they're pretty small guys, but you kind of look around and going, they're just monsters. I mean, they're the basketball players that didn't want to play basketball. And they're like, you know what? I don't want to get elbowed down below. So I'm going to try this sport volleyball, and they're skying and they're just swinging away. And I mean, we talked about men's versus women's game, and net's higher, but man, I mean, these guys, my wife was there with me, and she hasn't seen a men's game in a long time. And when these guys are warming up, doing their block jumps, I mean, they're just like
way over the net.
they're like this.
The athleticism
like
with
this,
these guys
right?
are
Yeah, and they're
incredible.
just looking over. You're like,
It's so different. And again, it's so different, but it's also, what were we doing? Were we down, getting a drink, after, before, and then would go bounce the ball before we even warm up and then play? I mean, we weren't in the weight room. We weren't doing plyometrics. We weren't working with 3 different trainers on serving and passing and, all of those stuff. And that's what a lot of these kids are doing. Kudos to them, right? Bear, speaking of height, you coach a college, junior college, Santiago Canyon College. How is it with regards to you in height? I mean, are there 6'7", 6'8" guys across the board?
There are some. Yeah, like a couple of the better programs have some of those really big kids. I had a 6'9" kid 2 years ago, Cameron, and he was a lefty opposite, and he played great. And the level, I mean, I played junior college, and the level of play, even from when I played, is a lot higher now. And I think we'll get into this later, but with the whole NIL, where
Transfer
if you go to JC, transfer portal, and if you go to JC, it's not going to count and all that stuff. I think the JC level is only going to get better. It's only going to get better.
Yeah, if that comes to fruition, for sure. I mean, the people are they're going to want to go to JC, right? Get those 2 years underneath it, but we'll see how that all plays out.
We can take a whole episode, and I think we should, talking about all of that. I do hope it doesn't happen for that in regards to the junior college. Now, I understand why the rule was set. Quarterback at Vandy. During COVID, he didn't get his year back. All of us, like my son got his year back at the NCAA. Like, he deserved that year back. I get it. I just don't think playing 2 years of junior college sports and then going to play, which they're trying to make it 5, not 4, 5 years. I mean, to play 7 years of sports. So to go back to what you were saying with the high school kids, is it's going to make, even if they don't change that, which I hope they don't with the JUCO making that where you get 2 extra years, I believe JC sports are going to be like they were a long, long time ago. Much more relevant, much more important. It's already great sport. I go watch basketball games. I've seen volleyball. And now that the portal's here and the portal's going to stay and colleges are recruiting within that before high school, the high major of yesterday is the mid-major of today.
Mm-hmm.
The mid-major of today is, depending on high academic JC, small D2 if you're lucky. And it's just, it's sad in some ways, but it's evolved and it is what it is. So you got to be on board. You got to accept it. You got to embrace it. So like I said, we could talk about it forever, but that's great to hear that you got a lot of height, on your team. And you talked about it, Sully, with Long Beach. I mean, I've been around a few men's matches. I went to a couple Northridge games last year. And then I'm around some women's games, go up to the UCLA match and try to see some high school matches, like I said earlier, with my wife training kids, and they're all big, right? I mean, women's college volleyball, 6'7", 6'8", 6'9". We barely had one 6'8" guy on our team in college.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Nelson it's for us.
Yeah. Nelson.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And they're across the board. You go watch Northridge or Long Beach, you just said 6'8", 6'9", 6'7", 6'9", 6'10".
It's pretty cool. Like I had a chance to go to a couple matches last year at Long Beach, and they have this thing in the pyramid. It's down behind the court. It's kind of a little bar place. I forget
Sandbar.
the sandbar.
The sandbar, right.
Have you been in that? Yeah, but I mean that angle. I mean, I think one of the best angles to watch volleyball is behind the court. You can see the holes open up and all that stuff, and it's just but being down on the floor and seeing how these guys are flying all over the place and the athleticism. They're on the floor. They're all over the place. It is just amazing, and how fast it's going. I mean, you get to see that a little bit up in the stands, but being right down there on the floor like that is just, it's amazing what these guys are doing.
I don't think even folks that had played it in our generation, unless they're there watching it on TV, like watching the Final Four for women, you can tell how much the game has advanced or evolved. But I don't think, just like going to a football game, but I don't really feel if you're not there.
Doesn't do it justice.
It doesn't do it justice.
No,
it's like going to an NBA game. People are like, oh, they're big. And then you get there and you're like, no, they're really big,
They're
right?
huge.
Like,
yeah.
And they're 6'11", 7 feet doesn't do it justice on TV. But go back to the volleyball, it's the same thing, right? You're there watching it right there.
Yeah.
And you go, wow, 6'8" is actually really big. And 6'8" that jumps 37 inches
and they're athletic.
is really gnarly, right? Like it,
Yeah.
you know, we weren't like that. We were 6'4", 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah.
If you were lucky to have 6'7".
The pace of the ball too, how fast that ball's traveling is
80 miles an hour
unbelievable.
On a serve.
80 on a serve. Yeah.
Right.
I don't even know if we were spiking that hard
that,
back in the day. If we were hitting
I
the
don't
ball
know.
80. I don't know.
The two things that I talk about Coley too is NASCAR, right? People NASCAR fans, until you go to one, it's not the same on TV. It doesn't do it justice. You have to go. And then after college, I was working on this commercial, and Shaquille O'Neal was the star of the commercial, right? So he's there. And it's funny because you see him on TV and you see his Superman tattoo, right? So you look on your arm, you're like, oh yeah, cool Superman tattoo. That Superman tattoo is like that big.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable because when you see him live, it's totally different because they'll just makes everybody common. And that's what my wife said. She's 5'3", 5'4". So she's going down there. She goes, yeah, they didn't look this big when you're up in the stands. I'm like, no, just because they make them look normal. You know what I mean? Just normal people.
They're big.
And amazing.
I mean,
it's like hockey too. Have you ever been like live hockey?
So fast.
It's way different in person. And the
hockey's
first time
a
I went to
great
a
game.
hockey game, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh
Hockey.
my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun.
Hey,
It
Bear,
is.
I know you don't follow women's game, or you used to not. You're going to have to
I'm
now,
starting
right?
to,
Yeah. And you got to look up in this year's NCAA tournament, if you can find UNI versus Louisville, one of the best matches I've ever seen, and a great storyline. And it was an unbelievable, gritty match. It's just one of those ones you got to look at.
UNI, it was a great match to watch.
Yeah, it was a
I
great
thought they were going to win it.
match.
I really did.
Yeah, I did too.
You said storyline. Is that with the libero?
No,
Is
it was
that
actually, it was just, they were, Louisville was one of the top seeds.
okay?
And UNI's a mid-major, and I think they got the 8th seed of the final seeding on that, and
Just that
they
close.
just toe-to-toe, and they had a couple of match points and the whole deal. And the head coach for UNI is a great friend of mine. Her daughter, she has 2 sets of twins. One was on the UNI as she's redshirting, and the other one was on the bench for Louisville. So just that whole dynamic, it was just and just good volleyball, flat out good volleyball. So yeah, so I just want to share you guys got to go see some men's matches for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It was like, and I tell people here that are into women's volleyball, I'm like, okay, you gotta go see a men's game, because it's not the same. It's really not the same.
Not in person. Like, again, the good news is TV's doing a really good job. Like, you can watch these. Again, I was watching Ohio State, UCLA. I think it was on ESPN Plus, and which is great. But seeing, like we just said, things in person, it's really nice. And everything. I mean, go to a live concert. It doesn't matter. Most people know that seeing something live, but when you actually see the size of either the men or the women, whichever you're going to, like actually right there, you don't. It really puts it into perspective of how gnarly they are, but just like just where you are, where they are. And, people do it. Like I said, I'm more, around basketball. My son's basketball high school team, 6'10", both of them are 6'8".
Wow.
So 3 out of the 5 are 6'8", 6'10", and the first one off the bench is 6'7". So like, and that's just a high school basketball team. You go to watch the same thing. You go to a college basketball game, you go to an NBA game, you go to volleyball games. And I think everyone should go to a volleyball game. So if you're in an area that there's a college men's team,
Go.
D3, D2,
Yeah.
D1, doesn't
Go.
matter. Club team, it's just go. It's really
Yeah.
fun to watch. It's such a great game, and it continues to evolve where they're making it as much as they can more friendly to watch on the television and all that stuff. Like we talked earlier about the scoring. So, go see it. It's worth it. And these
and the
athletes
growth has
are
exploded
impressive.
for men's.
Yeah.
The growth has exploded. I mean, with the D2 and NAIA, and it's just gotten bigger. And the juniors, they're just so much more involved now. I mean, so when I was at that match, I was texting you guys, and Robert Cooch, his son, is now playing for Ohio State. So a teammate of mine, right? He's at Ohio State. I'm like, where are you? He says, Austin. And I'm like, there's no men's volleyball in Austin, but that was the point. That was the whole point. You had UCLA, Penn State, you had Ohio State. I'm not sure the fourth one was, but they're there and trying to get that junior volleyball for men's up and going. And so you had four good quality universities there. Brilliant move marketing wise, but it's just, we just need more opportunities at a higher level in those guys to take in. But, there's
What do
rules
you
in
guys
place.
think about the roster limit now for D1 down to 18? Do you think other schools are going to start getting a men's volleyball, do you think? Or do you think it's just going to stay the same?
I'll tell you what. So
I'll let Sully
there's a
answer
lot
this.
more. Yeah, there's a lot of more details that I don't know about. But on the surface level, we always had, even when we played guys, our scholarships for 4.5 scholarships. And
It's
that
still
can
the
go,
same, and that's not changing.
Yeah, well, no. Next year they can go up to 18.
That's what I thought too. I
Yeah,
thought there
they
was
can go up to
18
18.
scholarships
So a
now.
lot of these guys are going to get 12s to match the women's.
It depends on the school itself. If the school
Well,
still has to fund the scholarship.
Correct. They
Sure.
can have up to 18 funded is my point, right? Where before they couldn't. Interesting enough, in men's volleyball, they have for the national championship, it's Division I and Division II combined. I don't know if you guys knew that, right? It's Division I and Division II combined. Lewis is technically Division II. They don't have the same rules as Division I.
Yeah,
so
they're different.
That's totally interesting too. If you're going to do a Division I and Division II national championship, right? But to answer your question, Bear, like I don't know we get Al Knipe on here, and he's absolutely gonna know. So
yeah, I think get a women's college coach on here too, and see the differences of what it is going to be like today, going into tomorrow. Because I think also for younger boys and girls that are listening to our podcasts, that want to learn about volleyball, maybe learn some of the stories, but also learn what's going on in volleyball. And they're in a 12-year juniors in Arizona, or they're a 14 and under in Chicago, or the rules and understanding the way the recruiting landscape comes. I think that's valuable for us to tell our listeners. And we have the knowledge, and some of the folks that can come on here to talk about that. And I think it's important because I follow it daily, right? Because I have a son still that's, going to go play
you're
college
in the thick
basketball
of things right now.
Yeah, and it's the NIL and how things are changing with scholarships, and walk-ons are no longer.
And
all these things
and
are
all that stuff.
All this stuff is changing dramatically. And so I think it's a great idea to have, Al on here for sure, but, get another a women's coach and more than one or two and talk. And it'd be great to just continue to educate all of us, me included, and our guests. And then remember, I was speaking of that, two things. Make sure you hit subscribe. And always, when I'm in there, make sure you just set the pipe, because it's always important to set the pipe.
Of course, it's because there's nobody else in the front row, so just set Coley in the back row, guys.
That's right. Every
really
team set the pipe.
Just set Coley.
And I got a treat. for you guys and our listeners. So the next time us three, get together and do a pod, I will be wearing that jersey from Columbia.
Well, I got to dig mine out somewhere. I got to find mine.
I actually was in the garage today. We were trying to rearrange and get some stuff, and I opened up this box, and
you were just trying to look for the jersey.
There it is. I'm like, oh my goodness, I had to put it in the wash machine, so I can't wait to wear that.
Did it fall apart?
Coley,
no, it's still in great shape. It's still in great shape.
Okay.
This is a little snippet, though, on something that I think. So when I was playing, I was always number 10. Even like when I was in third grade flag football, I was always number 10. And for whatever reason, on that trip, I think I was number 5, I think. Is that the number that's on your jersey?
I think it is. Today?
So
I was number 10.
You were actually number 10, and we swapped jerseys on that. So I have number 10.
You deserve
now.
it, bud.
I appreciate that, though. Yeah, you gave me 10
Excellent.
at the end of the trip. Yeah, just a little.
Yeah, I couldn't do it because what happened was, like I said, USA Volleyball, we were a sanctioned at the point team playing in this event, and they sent the roster over with the numbers. There's no changing it at that point. This isn't like, hey, let me erase it. But I had the jersey, and like Bear, we're friends. I know how much it means. If it was my number, like 16, I would have loved to have that too, right? So it was great. I'm glad you have it. I'm glad I have it.
Yeah,
but I'll be wearing that on the next pod. Just
awesome.
so we have.
So I was always number 8, and so when we're at Lewis, number 8, he's a guy with curly hair, foreign player, and he kind of walks by me, and I look over. I'm like, I probably should get a photo with this guy, right? 2 8s in the house, but I didn't. So missed that opportunity.
You don't want to be that fanboy out there, like, who is this? Who's this old man like trying to take pictures?
Right. That's what
hey man, I was actually pretty good. Sure you were.
That's exactly what I said. I'm hanging out without talking to him. I'm like, I'm not stalking this kid. No way. Yeah. And then we talked about Lawrence Hom, right? His son plays on Lewis, right? He's a freshman on Lewis's bench.
That's
right
amazing.
Now, so.
And Lawrence Hom. So go back to the first, our first time we were talking. I said the first time I ever played at nationals, the gentleman Jimmy Hall from Northridge picked me up on his team, and I told you we had lost in the finals. We lost to Lawrence. And
he was a heck of a player.
He was a great player. And I actually had a really good tournament. He had an amazing tournament. Those are the ones where you're hoping to get a player of the year, whatever it was. Well, they beat us. He got the player of the year. I only got first team, but it was a great match. Lawrence was amazing. I'm glad I got to be friends with him, got to learn who he was, play with him, play against him. It was great.
Yeah, we've been texting the last couple of days because
get him on here.
Yeah, no, I'm all for it. He's all for it. I reached out to him, which was great, but I'm standing there with Alan. We're ready to walk out, and this other couple comes up to Alan. He's like, hey, hold on. I'm like, okay. Come to find out, it was a teammate, parents of Aiden in Switzerland.
Wow.
Jeez.
So they just walked up to him and just said, hey, I just wanted to introduce us. We're, our kids are on the same team in Switzerland. I was like,
jeez. Volleyball is such a small world.
So just so everyone here at Listen knows, that's Aiden Knipe, Alan Knipe, who's the head coach at Long Beach. His son, who's set for him at Long Beach State, is now playing professionally in Switzerland.
Yeah.
And the family that just walked up, their kids playing with him.
Pretty
cool.
It is a small world, volleyball.
Exactly.
Really,
I mean, it drives, and it's funny because I get the biggest eye rolls from any of my kids if I'm just somewhere and they're like, I'm like, hey, what's going on? My kid's like, my God, like, can we not go places where somebody, but it's the volleyball world. It really is the volleyball world.
100%.
Yeah. So
didn't Cooch and Lawrence Hom, didn't they go to high school together?
North Torrance?
Somewhere in Torrance. From North Torrance, yeah. And so now their kids are playing against each other.
Yeah,
Crazy.
potentially. Yeah.
Well, they might actually, is Lewis and Ohio State in the same league? For volleyball?
I would imagine so. I mean, it's
so they are playing against each other, right? Because they're both, which is just, again, you go volleyball. They both went to North Torrance, Cooch to Long Beach State, Lawrence to USC, and now their kids are playing. Think about, there was no Lewis or Ohio State when Lawrence and Robert Cooch were in high school,
Ohio State
or even in college.
Nope. Ohio State was there, not Lewis. Lewis wasn't there
for sure. Ohio State was maybe there.
Yeah.
In Lawrence's early years.
Penn State was the big one back then.
Yeah, and just to see the game, like we talked about earlier, how much the game has grown, right? Like their two kids, are playing at Lewis and Ohio State. And, they played at Long Beach State and USC, and they both went to school in
Southern
Torrance,
California boys.
California. So pretty awesome to see what the game can do. And I think, if there's kids listening to this that are debating, should I play volleyball? Should I not? The answer is 100% you should play volleyball.
Absolutely.
And what I tried to tell my boys, even though, I told you guys this last time, they didn't want to play the game of volleyball, play it like, we did.
Yeah.
But I still wanted them to learn it. And I still wanted them to play it so they can go down to the beach on a Saturday and play with their friends.
And just hack around if they want.
Yes, hack around. Their girlfriends are both volleyball players. How fun is the game of pepper? Just with someone like Michelle and I don't do it much anymore, but we used to go out into our, our cul-de-sac and just play pepper for 20, 30 minutes, get a sweat going. You're still playing volley. You're not getting up and hitting or blocking, but so play the game, play the game. Always set the pipe when you're playing the game. And
on the beach.
The reason why you should play the game, besides the game itself being so fun and all that, is the stories we're talking about. It's what you remember, and the culture of volleyball is something I think you won't forget, and you can build lifelong friends doing it. So
so
that was lifestyle.
When Bear and I got together about Set the Pipe, and we were looking for the third. So during those conversations, part of what we're going to do, and I explained this to you, but definitely for our audiences, we want to do a series of parent to kid. And what I mean by parent to kid is just like we're talking about Lawrence Hom, USC national champion, son's in, right? You got Jermaine O'Neal, his daughter Asia, right? NBA player with the college kid. So I'd love to do a parent athlete series with Set the Pipe. I think it'd be, I mean, because they all have great stories. Just think about how recruiting is and how things are now. And, they went to school and, they went to play in a basketball career. They had a basketball career. They didn't know anything about volleyball. And all of a sudden their daughter's just entrenched in this thing and on, top 4 team in the country. And you got to learn this game. Yeah, I just think those are good stories. So we're going to start those series. Yeah. So for sure, keep a heads up as well.
I think if there's so many parents that had played volleyball that have kids playing, and that doesn't mean their kids are great, or it just they're around it, right? And so it just to hear their knowledge, because I can tell you what it was like for me with 2 sons. I was way tougher on my first one than I was on my second one with regards to the sports stuff.
Yeah,
and I'd love to hear it. I was talking to someone today, and actually he'd be great. He was way younger than you guys, but his name's Sean Callahan. He went to Northridge out of high school. He played volleyball with Michelle's brother in high school at El Toro. And then when they cut the program briefly, he transferred to Long Beach.
I was he played. I know that name.
No, he played at Long Beach for a few years. So he's a 49er and a Matador. He didn't want to leave Northridge, but what happened? And he was happy to be at Long Beach. He married, I believe, a Yukon Husky, and she was a setter. Their daughter's now playing with the Arizona Juniors. Michelle and I've watched them play. She's amazing. I'd love to have them on and see what it's like, being parents of a youth kid. And, I think it's a great series to do. Great series to do.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many out there because it is coming time. Like we said, who were we texting? I was literally texting Cooch with his son playing, and it's just that time. It's just that time. And we kind of missed a couple, actually. We're probably behind about 4 or 5 years, but it's just that evolution of parent to athlete, and they all have good stories because, like I said, the sports are different. The rules are different. The scholarships are different. There's so many different things. And so how did you weave your way as an athlete and then as a parent, and how did you guide your parent? And how did you guide your kid? And I think that's going to be a great series. We just got to get people to help us out. So
yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, these are just about, this is what we're going to be doing for the most part on these, and kind of setting you up for our next podcast.
I'm excited. Yeah, I was going to say I'm excited to be here from both of you guys, and I think what we're doing is going to be fun.
Yeah, for sure.
There's plenty of stories to be told. There's plenty of things to talk about. Volleyball is a great game. It's a great culture. You called it a lifestyle, Bear, is what you said, and it really is. And I think we need to, celebrate that. And that's why we're still here, three of us together. We've been playing volleyball against each other since the early 90s, maybe 1990 to go back to that. And now it's 2025, and us three are sitting here on a podcast still talking volleyball.
That's
pretty awesome.
That's crazy.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, pretty awesome. So, Coley, why don't you tee up who our next guest is going to be?
Yes, our next guest is going to be Matt Furbringer. He's the head coach of the Madison LOVB volleyball team. We're really excited to have him on to come talk a little bit about professional women's volleyball and a little bit about his history as well.
Yeah, good dude, really good dude. His resume is beyond impressive for sure. So I'm looking forward to the interview. Bear, you've known Matt for a while too, right?
Furbs is a great guy. We played a little bit at Paul Mitchell together.
Okay.
Ran into him. He was coaching at Long Beach State. Ran into him a little bit.
Oh, that's right. He was on the women's with Joy. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
so
and I think when you got to talk to him when you interview him about how you guys met, I think it's a great story.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll definitely bring that up.
We'll let that teaser out there for sure. So
he's a good all around guy.
Yeah, that's good. So we also have others that we have listed that's on our calendar to interview, which is great. It hasn't executed yet, but for sure we've got some things going. So Set the Pipe is going to be around for a while. I appreciate Bear and CK on this venture with me. And we said when we first started, if it's not fun, then we're just not going to do it. And there's plenty of stories out there that need to be told, and we're going to be the ones to do it. So
subscribe.
Subscribe for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Set the Pipe. So, all right, people, we'll talk to you soon. Set the Pipe, baby.